Defending the Crow, a Dvar Torah for Parashat Tanakh. As a child, much of my time was spent reading, with fantasy books taking up more of my time than any other reading material. A series I have read and reread many times was Lloyd Alexander's Chronicles of Pryden, and although it's been a while since the last time, this week got me thinking about one of my favorite, if somewhat minor characters, the Crow Caw. What reminded me of my feathered friend was the unflattering way in which crows, or ravens, in Hebrew they're both orvim, are described in fantasy literature, and how this isn't very different from how the commentators I knew explained their role in Tanakh. Unfortunately, cause people don't seem to enjoy his reputation as a steadfast, heroic, and loyal friend. I mean, a group of crows is called a murder, for crying out loud. So I set out to discover if crows do indeed deserve their bad reputation in the only way I know how, seeing what the Tanakh has to say about them. What I discovered was that crows appear 10 times in Tanakh and are considered by the commentators to be a nasty life form, mean towards their children, and even when they're feeding Eliyahu Hanavi, the commentators make a point of mentioning that this is against their nature, so we don't seem to be out for a great start. But there is a pasuk in Shir Hashirim comparing the beloved's hair to the blackness of a crow, so maybe not all is lost. Our focus, however, will be the crow in this week's parsha. 40 days after the peaks of the mountains reappear from beneath the water of the flood, Noach sends the crow out of the ark, and the crow travels back and forth until the land dries out. He then sends the dove on 3 separate trips, and through her discovers that the land is dry. What needs a bit of clarification is, what is it exactly that's expected from the crow? I mean, as opposed to the dove, whose mission is stated clearly, to see if the waters have subsided from the surface of the ground, the crow is sent out without an explanation. And this is the point where we'll divide the commentators into 3, those who villainize the crow, those who keep it neutral, and the minority. Rashi brings an abbreviated version of the Midrash. The reason the crow didn't fulfill his mission was that he didn't trust Noach with his partner. What this explanation takes for granted is that the crow had a similar mission to that of the dove, and that he didn't fulfill it. The part Rashi omits is that the crow was one of 3 beings to try to reproduce while in the ark, something Noach found reprehensible, so he kicked him out. Meaning, according to the Midrash, the crow didn't have a mission. Interestingly, Rashi then points out that the dove didn't really have a mission, based on the grammar of the word vayishalach, which is a bit strange since it's the same word used with the crow, which Rashi claimed was sent out on a mission. At this point, we can add that the Talmud tells us that the crow blamed Noach for hating him just like Hashem. Hashem chose to bring into the ark only 1 male crow and 1 female, as opposed to 7 of the pure birds, and Noach chose to send him on this dangerous mission, as opposed to a bird with larger numbers, ignoring the fact that he might die on this dangerous mission. Rabbi Yosef Bechor Shol claims the crow was a coward. He agrees with Rashi that the crow was given the dove's mission, but he doesn't carry out the mission because he's afraid he won't find a place to rest and will perish. On the other hand, he does keep on leaving the ark because the fact that someone is afraid to travel over extensive bodies of water without knowing whether or not he'll have a place to rest doesn't mean he has to give up all those tasty bodies floating on the surface of the water. And although the crow doesn't come out looking too good in this explanation either, I would consider it an improvement to the previous ones. According to Radak, Noach expected to see what the crow would bring back from his trip, assuming he'd come back with some meat if the water had subsided enough. Unfortunately, the crow didn't bring anything back, so this ended being a dead end for Noach. I find this commentary to be more neutral since Noach had no way of explaining to the crow what was expected of him, and the fact that he didn't bring anything back can't really be held against him. Abarbanel claims the crow acted as expected. He was sent because, according to him, crows can be found near humans, and Noach wanted to check whether or not any large buildings were left. Since the crow kept on returning to the ark, Noach understood no such buildings remained standing. This is the opposite of what Rashar Hirsch teaches, which is that the crow lives far away from human beings, and so Noach sent him to see if there was someone far away which had dried out. Malbim even says that the crows were considered magical birds, and Noach just sent him free to try and decipher from his flight direction and mannerisms what was going to happen next. These explanations shine the crow with a better light and allow the fictitious descendants a shred of dignity. But they don't explain why Noach was willing to risk the entire existence of a species on this dangerous mission. Which is where the Netziv steps in, saying that neither the crow nor the dove were brought into the ark by Noach for reproduction reasons. Instead, he says, they were both Noach's pets. They entered the ark as part of Noach's family, not as a part of the commandment. That's also why Noach gave them the job and not larger birds such as eagles or falcons, who are stronger flyers than both the crow and the dove. I had lots of fun this week and went on longer than I usually do, so even though there's much more to write, I will declare Cause Lineage somewhat clean and beseech you to subscribe and forward this to a friend. I'm Dovi Holtz, one who loves Tanakh.